What comes to mind when you hear the word self-love? I feel like the last couple years with quarantine and everything that self-love has become a buzzword and you see it everywhere. But what is it? Me being me, I got online and I looked up some definitions. And the one I found from the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation really resonated with me. Self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Self-love means having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness. Self-love means taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. Self-love means not settling for less than you deserve. They go on to say that self-love means accepting yourself as you are in this very moment for everything that you are. It means accepting your emotions for what they are and putting your physical, emotional, and mental well-being first. Just like most things in life, self-love looks different for everyone. And it's important to figure out what is important for your mental health so that you can figure out what self-love looks like for you. Ask me 10 years ago to define self-love and I would have given some superficial answer. I would have been more concerned about the perception of how I thought I should be versus who I am in my truest form. I didn't grow up in an environment indicative of self-care and certainly not self-love. I was constantly on the go, on to the next, all because I was avoiding myself. I believed that my self-worth came from external validation, not a feeling I found within myself. In a culture that views emotions, setting boundaries, and putting yourself first as selfish, it took a lot of work to cultivate a sense of self-love and acceptance. I held a lot of shame, anger, embarrassment, and unworthiness within my body that eventually physically manifested. And it was through self-actualization and self-awareness that I began to take responsibility for my own suffering through my self-deprecating thoughts, patterns, and behaviors. I had to come to terms that I do not have a healthy relationship when it comes to alcohol and recreational drugs. And if I wanted to make a change in my life, I had to get sober. When I wasn't taking care of myself, resentment was building a layer over my heart space. I didn't know what it was like to allow myself to feel. I found to be true that in order to begin my healing part of myself, I must feel whatever emotions were surfacing instead of suppressing them. Healing is anything but linear. Being the multifaceted person that I am, I find myself returning to peel back more layers of myself when I thought I had done the work to heal the wound. But do we ever get to a place of being healed in any areas of our lives? I had to learn to unlearn to relearn everything I thought I knew about self-love. With the help of an empowerment life coach, I was able to explore the feelings of unworthiness and abandonment. In my life experience, the feelings of unworthiness stems from someone telling me at a very young age I wasn't good enough. Why do humans hold on to one negative comment instead of holding on to all the positive ones? I'm rewriting my story. I am good enough. I am worthy of love. I am allowed to set boundaries. I am here to take up space. I am safe to express my feelings and my thoughts. I find it so important for me to be transparent as I continue to share my human experience here on Earth School. So for me, self-love is grieving who I was and why I love who I am becoming. Self-love is letting go of people, places, and stories that no longer resonate in my heart space. Self-love is changing my mind once I am better informed. Self-love is not knowing what's in store for my future, but trusting that everything is always working out for me because I am always divinely protected and guided. Self-love is creating a life that feels good to me and not explaining it to anyone. Self-love is responding to a text, email, or phone call when I have the space to. Self-love is spending more money on organic food because I know my health is my wealth. Self-love is giving myself permission to fail. And self-love is knowing that I won't always be on my game 24/7, 365, because that is not realistic. What if we were meant to break, giving us the opportunity to build a foundation within ourselves to create a sense of self-worth, that in return is a form of self-love because we know who we are, what we value, and what we believe. I subscribe to a monthly newsletter from Olivera. She is a therapist, and I will make sure to leave her information in the description. She talks about self-love as a practice, not a permanent state. And this is what she wrote this month. I often hear how challenging it can be to feel like you love yourself, to feel like self-love is a state you can find yourself in all the time. To that, I always offer this. What if self-love is a practice, rather than a permanent state to strive for? When we think of loving ourselves as an ongoing practice, we create a little space for the practice of it to be enough. Even when we don't quite feel it all the time. We create room for the practice of it to shift and change as our experience of self-love shifts and changes. We invite in opportunities to show ourselves love, no matter how we're feeling, rather than constantly strive to feel one way all the time. I find this to be deeply empowering, and I find the practice of loving ourselves to be an invitation into embodying self-love in a more real, genuine, sustaining way. Self-love doesn't need to look like always thinking you're incredible or knowing how amazing you are 100% of the time. It can be more subtle than that, more expansive than that, more human than that. It can be as simple as choosing to get a glass of water when you're thirsty, which teaches you how deserving you are of your own care. It can be as basic as calling someone when you need support, which teaches you that you are worthy of receiving care. It can be as gentle as reminding yourself that feeling love for ourselves is challenging sometimes in a world that doesn't always encourage or nurture it. I invite you to explore what a self-love practice might look like without needing to attach it to a goal or outcome of loving yourself. I invite you to look at all the ways you already practice showing yourself love. I invite you to notice where doing so feels hard and where practicing it feels better. And I invite you to practice self-love in a way that doesn't feel cheesy or trite, but in a way that feels life-giving and soul-nurturing. The practice of it can be enough when we let it be, and over time, the practice of it can eventually feel like a deeply embodied experience of holding ourselves with love in a grounded and full way. I hope you find big and small ways to practice showing yourself the love you've always deserved, even when it feels challenging.